Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and envies. Welcome to another episode of Stream of Thought from Warui Deshou. We're back. It's not a dinosaur story, but it is a Viking story. It's a story of Viking television getting preempted various times and going off the air for weeks at a time. But finally, we have returned. Viking talk can commence. Vinland Saga. Vin 10. It's time.
Did you just say Vin 10?
I did say Vin 10.
Oh my.
For those of you
right, that's it.
For those of you listening by for those of you listening by audio only, the person guzzling the banana bread flavored beverage is our favorite Chester of Man. It's Shadon.
Well, you come on. If you've been following Warui Deshou for even 2 episodes now, you'll know I'm the raging out of the closet alcoholic of the podcast. You know.
That's right. There's nothing.
No surprises here. You don't need to be fucking Sherlock to guess. Oh, I wonder who that is who's drinking deeply, you know, in response to a silly comment. Who's got a sound like, you know, a fucking weasel being caught in a trap when he's, you know, like in deep pain. No surprises there. It would be me.
The guzzling, the clinking glasses.
Yep. All
All those sounds are coming from that side of the Atlantic. I, of course, am the unfortunately sober subtle doctor. I'm here. I just have this Agresco stress ball.
You're not going to eat it, are you?
No. Why would I? Why would I
You said you had nothing to drink, so I was worried that you were going to.
I mean, you know.
Okay, that's better. That's better.
Nothing, as fun as what you have. Folks, let us know if we're having technical problems or anything like that on stream. We should be up on Twitch, and also, I forgot the name of the service. That's not YouTube. What do you Periscope? We should be streaming also via Periscope. So that should be happening. And, yes. So, Vinland Saga episode 10 this week. We're going to talk about it. We have some thoughts and feelings. Shadon has watched it twice. I've only watched it once, but we have pages and notes.
To be fair, it's kind of cheating to survive Ragnarok and come back to talk about it. So that's why you only watched it once.
That's true. Well, it depends, right? Like, we'll talk about, I guess, whether you're referring to Ragnarok as it was sort of originally conceived, or sort of the one that started to get passed down post Christianity's encounter with the Norse religions. Because there is a version where there's a rebirth, and some of the gods get to kind of come back, and a new sort of verdant planet emerges from the void that the previous one, went down into all ablaze. Maybe that's the true Vinland, is the new the new planet or the new world that'll be birthed.
I'm just disappointed this particular episode wasn't guest directed by Taika Waititi. So here we go.
Stop.
He's a great director. He would have been fantastic with this. It would probably had a bit too much Led Zeppelin in it, though. I can just imagine Thorfinn doing that jump that, goes from, when he's trying to get on that wall, and then just Immigrant Song starts playing. I'm sure someone can A&B that. Maybe I should do that myself.
Song. Oh, that will be quite something.
It all fits. I assure you. I can confirm Vinland Saga is indeed part of the MCU.
My head hurts.
I mean, that's how.
Why do we need to bring this in? Okay. Now. Enough with the banterishness. Hello, Sophie.
Hello.
Let's, for one last time, revisit episode 9, the, Mattel's sponsored Vinland Saga. Was it Mattel that made Battleship? I think it was Mattel.
It was actually, yes.
Yeah, so Right. Let's talk about the battleship episode, and let's talk about the Twitter polls. What new polls will emerge throughout our discussion? Check the Twitch chat. Check the Twitch chat for links, or check the Twitter at Warui Deshou for the new polls. But tell us what the old polls have to say.
Okay, so first one, and I think this is probably one of the most key polls ever asked in Vinland Saga history. This is, absolutely crucial to our understanding of it as a text and a work of fiction. And I, of course, am referring to, does Thorkel love orange soda? Now, 20% of you said Thorkel loves orange sod because there was an unfortunate typo. But
not enough characters. There's just not enough characters.
Loves orange sod. Does that mean they're all fans of David Dickinson from Supermarket Sweep, Mr. Tangerine Man?
Probably.
And then 10% said, oh yes, it's true. And 70% said, he do. So all the answers there were correct. You all passed with flying colours. Congratulations. Very well done. Gold star.
Ding.
Next question, and we'll see if this actually plays out in practice here. Should Soul Doctor stop attempting the Viking accent? We had quite a melange, a mixture of answers here. 40% said no, 29% said nuh-uh, with the finger wag included, that we didn't put in an emoji, but it's totally a finger wag.
It's definitely implied.
Said nope, and 43% said never. So I think you have free license to continue, Doc, at some point later. I'm very, very eager to hear your how do we put this? Your deep Mongolian accent by way of Viking. It sounds like Genghis.
No,
yeah, it's gonna be Genghis. No, it's like Genghis Khan this time.
No, listen, I do a thorough research into the historical texts and the writings and the experts, what they have to say about what the Vikings sounded like.
That's all well and good, but do you know what I have that the Vikings don't? You can insert all your own jokes in response to that. A Blue Yeti microphone. Ain't no MP3s of Vikings from those days. Ain't no mixtapes of all
Listen,
what they were up to.
Come on, is that truly the level of proof to which scientific and archaeological inquiry need aspire? Come on, you're handicapping the sciences.
Unless you can find, an archaeological dig that unearths, a book of how to pronounce Viking 101.
Let me get back to you on that, but for now, proceed with the polls.
Certainly. Well, we're not. We're going to go back to actually the very same poll, because the second one was, seriously though, should he stop? As in, stop using the Viking accent. And 29% said yes, and 71% said no, for real. We want you to keep going. So you've got free license to keep doing your own equivalent of Wacko, going around the entire world, with the different accents you're doing. You're going to give us a complete geography lesson. We'll never be able to place where actual, Viking territories are. But, we've got all the good voices in.
I'm just sad that you don't.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, Blinkachi. I'm sorry
Did I win?
that you don't appreciate the fact that I put in a lot of time and hard work, right? When you guys tell me I get it wrong, I hit the books again. I go back to the documentaries. I go back to my, History Channel VHS tapes. I watch Vikings, to kind of get and then I take all the new information.
The problem you're making here, Doc, is that you're watching Vikings in, with the dub on for the fucking Japanese by accident as a force of habit from watching too much anime. So this is a Viking accent. Desu was definitely a word.
Yes, they said Desu a lot.
Desu was a word.
Right.
So yeah. Anyway, we have one final poll. This is a more serious one. Does Vinland Saga have a Gundam problem, in which, our protagonists are incredibly ineffectual boys who are complete shits to each other? Oh, wait, that's Wing, sorry. Still the only Gundam I've seen.
That's a great problem,
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a real problem. No, the actual Gundam problem here is more, war is hell, but look at all this cool shit that happens because of war in our show. Don't you like the war elements in this, and all the cool things happen? Like, for example, the off-road boating that we saw in one of the previous episodes, which is still incredible. Or battle ships, even.
Yeah.
Or just Thorkel. Thorkel's loving the shit out of all this, and he's great.
Or cool,
anyway.
dagger, dual-wielding ninja boy,
Yeah, pretty much. 67% agreed that yes, it is indeed a Gundam problem, and 33% said no. I will add one qualifier onto this poll for you all, just to get a little more serious at the moment and move away from jokey jokes. The thing about a lot of media that we consume is that sometimes there are problematic elements in it. No show's perfect. How many shows have you and I watched that have got stupid shit in them that we still adore?
Zero. I watch no stupid shit. It's all highbrow.
I thought we were in agreement on this, Doc. That's we would be watching stupid shit together. And now you mean to tell me that we've never done that, and you've left me in the lurch?
No,
what
we've listen. Don't hold such a low opinion of what we watch. I mean, we've seen some masterpieces in our day, and
that's true.
Put our opinions to microphone.
I mean, if you want a more serious example from me, though, of a film in particular, I absolutely adore, even though it has a really nasty dark spot in the middle, unfortunately, despite the fact I understand why they put it there. I'm referring, of course, to The Wings of Onomize, which beautiful movie, beautiful anti-war message, immaculately animated. Unfortunately, misplaced and misguided attempted rape scene in part of it, which, again, I get why it's there, but could have done without it, and then it would have been pretty much perfect.
Yeah, and I think just to clarify, because you've talked about this before, so I think you're truncating a lot of your reasoning and arguments. But just to be clear, for everyone out there, I think what you mean, and certainly what I mean, when I would say I understand why it was there, we mean we have read what the creator's intent behind it was and what the defense for it is, and that's what we understand. Not that we it should be there, or we think it's better that it's no.
Yeah, but that leads us to the point, which is that even if shows have problematic elements in them to varying degrees, less or greater, you are still within your right to enjoy them. Not everything is immediately a deal breaker. It's not a binary thing of this show is acceptable and this isn't. There are bits of shows that are bad, and in turn there are bits of them that are fantastic. So for me personally, with Vinland Saga, it has that Gundam problem, and I think it's a little bit exacerbated by adapting the material out of order somewhat. But I still think on the whole it's a very, very strong show. So saying that. For all that we've put that poll out there, and I'm glad people participate in it, it's a very binary answer to a much more complicated question.
Totally. That's what the polls are meant to do. They're not meant to be nuanced. They're meant to be dumb, even when they're serious.
We're meant to be dumb. Why do you think I'm drinking this? I'll whip out the moonshine next. I've been keeping hidden.
Is that Viking moonshine?
No, it's just pure ether.
Okay.
It's meant to go in cars. It's still leaded apparently as well, but I've decided just to drink it to myself because fuck it. I mean, hell, what have I got here? This is air freshener. This is Airwick Purple Lavender Meadow. I think I could drink that. I'll smell like fucking roses afterwards. It'll be great.
Well, before we get to 10, since we brought it up already, I thought that I should, grace the pod with the Viking accent. Because truly this is the one. Right? This is it. Okay? This is the culmination of all my efforts to get a grip on what these guys truly sounded like. Okay? So here goes.
I thought they sounded like Japanese voice actors.
No. See, this is where you, my friend, have gone astray. You've gone don't fall for this. This is just an adaptation from another country. Okay? They sounded much different. And it was a bit like this. Well, hey there. My name is Leif Erikson. And I am a Viking. Am I right? Or am I right? Ask lad. Ask lad. Boy, you mount up and you ride as you've never ridden before across the sea to those goddamn English, and you dethrone them, and you prepare a throne for me, your Viking king. I can't remember his name, but he's Lord of the High Seas, and also of your local saloon. That's him, right? I mean, come on, that's a dead ringer.
There are such things I stress as rednecks in the world, but you've just, I think, created the first redneck. Like you went double redneck on that. That's like supersizing your meal. That was impressive in a incredibly terrifying kind of way. Well, you'll get along great in Alabama, I suppose, with that kind of voice.
That's where I'm from, so it's
You're actually from Alabama?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Well, like sort of there or thereabouts. Like, so Mississippi and Alabama are basically mirror images of each other in terms of boundaries and geography, and also shittiness,
right.
and economy, and education. But yeah, so I'm from that area, and I've escaped north. So
did you pull a forfeit and break out from a cycle of hatred and revenge?
Yes,
and travel across to a distant land where you could truly be free.
I was kidnapped by, what's a good Nashville stereotype? That was 1% Borat for a bit. I was trying to go for something southern, and
Southern Kazakhstan is what you ended up with. So well done.
German is on there. Yeah, man. So that's wrong, huh? Damn, I really thought I had it this week.
You need a drawing board behind you just so you can keep going back to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. I wonder if it was, it was more like this. Like, Leaf, there's a bit of snow on the ground, don't you know? We gotta take care of that before the big battle starts. Was it more like that?
Yes. After a fashion, I suppose.
Right. Don't you just go and row the boat, right? Like, yeah. Okay, so I'm getting closer. Okay, I just apparently need to dig in to the text even more. It's so disheartening that I can't nail it down. One day we'll get to it.
Anyway, it's time, folks. I'm just gonna drink this up.
Okay. All right. Are you? No, please. We will move on to save you from that. So
I don't want to smell like lavender just yet. Maybe in a different stream, perhaps. That one's locked under the $10 patron that we're not doing just yet.
God, please. No, sorry, that's awful.
No one wants to see that shit.
Oh shit! Did I? Well, that's annoying. I closed a window that I needed to open, so I'm just gonna quickly, as I talk here, open up this tab so I can talk to you about episode 10 of Vinland Saga, Ragnarok.
Good old Ragnarok.
That's right.
I mean, you and I have both watched Joseph Anderson's God of War video, and he said it best. Like, it's one of the coolest words in language ever invented. It just rolls off your tongue. Ragnarok.
It's also,
it's also a club in Max Payne.
I didn't know that. It's also the airship in Final Fantasy VIII.
Oh god, it is, yes.
Yeah, but I was going to say...
I've just realised something that I can't believe that this has just hit me. I have to bring it now because I'll never bring it up again. So remember in Frank's how they had Hringhorni?
Oh, good God. Yes.
And basically, Hringhorni is Ragnarok from Final Fantasy VIII, isn't it? And it's even from the same mythological universe, the naming convention of it. God, that show was a gigantic load of whale seed, wasn't it?
It was terrible. It was terrible. We've established this.
Let's move on from the future, or rather the seg of that, to the past. Let's talk about Ragnarok, the episode, not the actual event.
Right, Ragnarok. So, same writers as before, but in the director's chair, this is the second episode to have two episode directors. So we've got Yusuke Tsunoichi. No, not Tsunoichi. Tsunochi. Apologies. Yusuke Tsunochi and Aiko Sakuraba. They have got some pretty limited, I would say, to be generous, CVs, like especially Sakuraba. Sakuraba has...
Have either of them had any experience in doing backgrounds, and particularly background character animation? Get the feeling they might not have based on this episode.
No. That would have been not them. So, Sakuraba has been really kind of background in most of the things they've worked on. Been production advancement. Again, a title whose like actual job duties completely elude me. But production advancement on Fate Zero seasons 1 and 2.
Very good.
Minori Scramble, which I've not seen. Attack on Titan 1, 2, and 3. But by the third season that aired in 2018, I guess it was.
Well, seems fitting for this episode, you know that he spent doing 3 seasons when nothing really happens. So, hey, good for him. He's keeping on brand, you know.
Well, by the third season, they seem to have advanced from production advancement to episode director. So they got to direct a couple of episodes of it. And now they're directing an episode of Vinland Saga.
Very good.
The same studio, of course, the same AOT. You know, you got Wit working on it. So Tsunochi has a little bit, a few more titles and a few more substantive. Sorry, I can't say that word for some reason. Substantive. It's substantive. A few more substantive roles, right? Got storyboarding for things like Joker Game, which was a super fun kids TV show. Oh wait, no, that's Phantom Thief Joker. Joker Game is a different. Joker Game is a historical, it's like a period drama. So never mind. Got episode direction on things like Haiku, very popular a Boas volleyball television show. FL Furikuri Progressive, episode director on that. So yeah. But also some like weird things, like they were the production assistant on Mass Effect Paragon Lost. That movie, which no one saw. I'm pretty sure.
Man, I didn't even realize that there was any. I mean, I knew there was like outside like books and stuff for Mass Effect. I realized it was a movie, or I presume it's an anime even.
Like I think it's like a CG. But I don't know.
Boy. Well, I suppose I'll have to watch that sometime just to ask if it actually looks better or worse than Andromeda did. Oh.
Swish. And then a Pokemon Black movie, which is a weird thing. Only because I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, most people that like work on Pokemon, they like remain working on Pokemon. They kind of,
not Ash anymore. He's now officially able to retire having won the league.
Good job. But yeah,
22 years.
It's well deserved. Oh boy.
Oh dear.
But yeah, those are our creatives behind Ragnoraku, the one sitting in the director's chair. Writers are the same, Kenta Ihara and Hiroshi Seko, and that'll likely remain the same until the end of the show, I would think. We'll let you know if that happens otherwise. But let us now... Yes, spy drama. Thank you, Andy. That's what it was. Was it not like mid-20th century, though? Like, or am I thinking only of Night Raid? For some reason, I was thinking Joker Game was a sort of parallel story to Night Raid, but I could be misremembering that. All right. Ven 10, Ragnarok. So, here we go. Let's get into this. So the episode opens with our orange soda loving giant skipping some stones merrily across the stream, which for him equates to throwing these gigantic boulders all the way across the river onto the land and bombing his opposition.
Well, he's graduated now from playing, battleships to skipping stones. They just happen to be the size of someone's head.
They're so yeah, it's absurd. It's like he's throwing a bean, but he's throwing this like lethal object. And so, the people that are getting bombarded are just like, yo, Ragnar, like, what the fuck, man? Can we go kill this guy? Like, he's dishonoring us. He's mocking us. We need to show him what's up
If
here.
I may add, when we first see Ragnar, we only get a look at the back of his head, and he reminded me of one of the aliens from Alien Nation, the Coneheads.
Oh.
I'm sorry, but like, you can't make me take this guy seriously when he's got a head sharp enough that he could literally etch his name with it.
Did you ever watch it's Alien Nation as well? But was Coneheads just a TV? Was it just a movie or a TV show? I know it's the origin of it was a Saturday Night Live sketch, but I don't remember if it was also television. I know it was a movie. But yeah, I remember I used to watch Alien Nation. I've thought about Alien Nation in years and years. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Good old nostalgic TV.
Now that we have a poll already up.
Okay, all right. Poll in the chat or at Warui Deshou on Twitter.
Yes.
So
I'll actually tell you the options now because Doc's not going to read this until later. I'm quite proud of this because when I'll just interrupt here to say that Forkel is approached by his colleague from England who says, "Hey, guess who's arrived around here? It's Prince Canute or Canute. I don't know how you pronounce it. Say I don't give a shit." And Forkel's reaction to this is quite incredible.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's really good.
So I have put a poll out there, folks, and I would love you all to just, answer it. In your opinion, what is the closest approximation of Forkel's expression at learning of Prince Canute being present? And I have 4 options for you here. I've got 1, constipation. 2, Olive Garden breadsticks. 3, quad damage. And 4, Dick Dastardly.
Oh, I love our polls. They're good. They're good. So yeah, as Shadon mentioned, Canute is here, and Ragnar goes to him once the men start squabbling, and basically he's like, "Look, Canute, who by the way is being attended by a priest, and he's basically spends the whole episode genuflecting and praying to a crucifix that he has kind of affixed in his tent." And Ragnar's like, "Look, some dudes want to like attack or whatever, but look, all we have to do."
I have speculation, and I think Canute says he's going like, "Our Father, who art in heaven, I pray to thee this day that you may remove the superglue that binds this helmet to my head."
I've been praying for 7 years.
It's still stuck. I can't get it off. It won't move.
Oh, that'll be what Thorkel does for him. Just like, pop, helmet off. But yeah, he's Ragnar basically it tells him, look, we just have to wait this out. We don't have to actually do anything. If we hang out until winter, because they can't really come and attack us, then we'll be called home. So let's just do that. And as you say, Thorkel hears that Canute is present, and so in my notes I tried to draw the face.
Can I just point out, Doc? If that's in focus, I'm going back there. I'm clipping that. And I'm putting that as an emoji in our Discord.
Okay. At some point, it wasn't focused briefly.
It's going to be called Draw Kill.
I love it. Yep.
Incredible.
Yes. Thorkel illustrated. Well, then we're treated to like this like dream sequence of Thorfinn's, in which he is a little boy again, as we was previously to the right of me on your screen, but now grown-ass ninja Thor, Finn rather, is there. But Thorfinn So he's a young boy again, and he's dreaming that he and his family are in this like lush green land. There's plenty of resources. There's like was there like a cabin? There's definitely food. There's meat. Like his sister and his mom are like cleaning this huge boar, and they're celebrating Yule, which I suppose is like Christmas time, except his dad, who shows up, he forgot it was Christmas time because it was so warm, as I think all of us would have, in this, resplendent, verdant locale that they're in, the too good to be true valley. And, Thor's tells him...
To be fair, the last time I saw that particular environment was on one of the Green Giant adverts. Ho, ho, ho. Green Giant.
I've never seen a Green Giant commercial.
That's probably for the best. It's nightmare fuel.
I only see the brand.
Every advert in Britain is nightmare fuel. Don't even get me started on the Bombay bad boy pot noodle shit that we've seen in the past.
Oh man, this sounds like I need to know about it though.
No, you really don't.
I really want to. Okay. All right, so
I'll get you a bad boy at some point then, Doc. How's that
good.
sound?
That sounds perfect.
It'll be a pot noodle. How's that sound?
Okay, all right, perfect. So Thor's is riding around on his Thorfinn. God, I'm out of practice. Has been riding around. He's riding around on his dad's shoulders, and his dad is talking to him and telling him, you're my son. You need to protect your mother and your sister because you're a man, and that's what's important. You have people waiting for you at home, loved ones waiting for you to return. And that's a wonderful thing. That's a thing to be treasured. Very, very important for living a happy life. And so then he says, so stop thinking about revenge. Suddenly things get black. Clouds come. You've got raiders attacking this village. Thorfinn is scared. His dad is gone. Suddenly he's getting shot by arrows. Of course, he wakes up. It was only a dream. And very, very sad dream for him. It turns out that Askeladd's men are growing pretty bored. I don't know. I struggle to get a good sense sometimes from episode to episode how much time has passed.
Well, there is actually a way of telling, because Thorkel, you might recall, lost both his fingers, but they are now... Well, he's obviously not reattached them, but...
I thought that was... Okay, I thought that was just a mistake. But they're...
No, I actually went back and checked 3 times on that, because I couldn't tell immediately that they had been cut off, but they were.
Okay.
So he is still defending London Bridge. It is after the previous episode, and it's been long enough. I mean, I'm no physician, so I don't have a clue how long it would actually take in reality to heal, especially given that particular time period. But they have healed up. Okay. As opposed to turning gangrenous, because, well, that's more likely to happen. But I think Thorkel literally just punched all the gangrenous bacteria out of his body. Because that's how he rolls.
So...
I mean, I'll tell you this for like, if I were a fucking virus and I was like, hey, I'm going to go infect that guy. Oh, Jesus, Thorkel. No. Back the fuck up. Back the fuck up.
The white blood cells will just eat you. That will be the end of you. Yeah, no, they were just cut off above the knuckle, so they grew back mysteriously. But
well, I mean, you were reading this out materials recently. Does that mean that Thorkel is now the owner of the subtle knife?
Right. That's my cousin you're talking about, by the way, the subtle knife.
Ah, very good.
We made this joke before. And I think this is James, by the way, that's reading those, not I. I read them, 12 years ago, I think. So I've forgotten so much. I'm going to reread them eventually.
I remember that shit. I don't know. I haven't read them in years either.
It's been a long ass time. But anyway, Philip Pullman aside. So yeah, some time has passed. Thorfinn looks older. Askeladd looks older. And we get some context clues with how his men are acting that definitely some time has passed. Like I said, they're kind of growing restless. They are like squabbling.
I don't like your face.
Pretty much
That's
over
basically
like
what the argument
little,
is.
yeah,
Fucking nothing.
little tiny things like create this, and then James the Subtle Knife. We should tell James Beckett that that's his new James the Subtle Knife Beckett. Who he's not my cousin. I was joking that I, the Subtle Doctor, have a cousin called the Subtle Knife, and we've done a whole family tree as a stupid gag on this podcast before. But at any rate, right? So, and when those two guys get in a fight over nothing, Bjorn is very much just like, well, tell Askeladd who dies. Like he doesn't care.
You can even tell Bjorn's despondent about the whole situation, because he's moved away from his staple diet of mushrooms onto actual meat.
I know.
He's comfort eating.
They must have scoured the entire English countryside for mushrooms. They've they just salted the earth in terms of the mushroom. None will grow back.
Yeah. Here's some roast beef, Bjorn. It's pretty great. And it's not a mushroom. What is it?
You make it very soggy, and maybe it'll sort of taste like a mushroom. So yeah, they are like. It turns out like, I don't know if this figure, this measurement of time is including before Askeladd's men got to England, or is just the amount of time they've been there. But he says for like a decade. I think Bjorn says for 10 years they've been plundering villages of England. And he heard a rumor that the king left, that the war really is over. It's only Thorkel that's the last man standing. Which is insane. To me, that 10 year, like that 10 years might have passed. So does that mean like that Thorfinn's in his mid-20s at this point?
I think maybe they were referring to the 10 years, like say 8 years since they first picked up Thorfinn. 2 years prior to that makes 10. I think that might have been it. Okay. I don't think he's jumped that far. I think that it's just been like the total amount of time they've been doing this. Okay. Askeladd was probably plundering England even before.
You're right.
He met Thorfinn for the first time. You're right.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Theowulf. So Thorfinn, we see sort of, I suppose, after he has woken up from his very sad dream, he kind of is out in a really pretty area. Like, I love the way that it looks. He kind of goes to sort of like a hilltop, I guess, to see the sunrise. And it's before dawn, and he meets Askeladd there. And they happen to be... by the way, I think it's interesting that Askeladd, the way he talks to him, very much like... not as an equal, I don't think, but like maybe that's a step too far. But he talks to him like a man, like he doesn't talk to him like a child anymore. And of course, Thorfinn's like, don't act so familiar with me. I'm still harboring a grudge against you. Don't forget, I'm going to kill you.
You're not the boss me, and you're not so big.
Exactly. But they happen to be standing on
Thorfinn in the middle.
Stop it. They happen to be standing on like the kind of collapsed ruins of ancient Roman architecture, and so Askeladd references that, right? He says, look, you have time on your side. You probably can't beat me right now, but I'm only going to keep getting older. You're going to keep growing up. Just look around you at this ancient Roman architecture. Like, the Romans were an incredibly great civilization, but time even was too much for them, and the Saxons toppled them, and we're going to topple the Saxons. That's just sort of the way, kind of the cycle and flow of the world goes. And in microcosm, of that will be you killing me one day. And I have a lot of questions, a couple things I'd like to talk about based on that after we get through with the summary. But you know, and in that discussion as well, you know, Askeladd says, you know, the Christians among us say that the last judgment is coming in 20 years, and Thorfinn kind of pivots.
I won't put any bets on that.
No, no. It turns out you would have lost that one.
Oh man, they'd be well fucking into Nostradamus though.
So he sort of pivots to Ragnarok, which I found really interesting. And from the Last Judgment to and the two concepts seem to kind of get muddied and melded together, at least based on my understanding of Ragnarok and my admittedly much better understanding of sort of Christian apocalypse. But Askeladd is like, God is going to come kill everybody. Like, that's not what happens in either of those stories. Not exactly. I suppose if he were talking about the Christian apocalypse, he'd be more right than wrong. But yeah, like, then the sun rises as they're talking about this, and Askeladd now sort of he starts to use, and for the rest of the episode, he uses language, specifically the word twilight, right? You know, because he's like, well, judgment is coming, Ragnarok is coming, and we're in the twilight of that. You know, basically the end of the world is like night, and it's twilight now. And so then we have this poor unfortunate messenger that meets them.
Riders of the storm.
And
couldn't resist.
So he shows up, and unfortunately he met Askeladd's people. An Askeladd who is restless and believes that the world, you know, we're in the twilight of the world when we really are probably just in the twilight of his life. But like, yeah, the messenger says, look, Thorkel marches for Marlborough, or Marlborough. It's only 500 men, which is crazy because Canute had a force of 4,000, but they have been routed. He beat Canute, and we see, you know, Thorkel pull the roof off of the little chapel tent of Canute's, and his crucifix falls to the floor. And Thorkel, it's like, you know, Prince Canute, what's going on? And then we don't really get to see too much more. But
that was, by the way, Thorkel's version of knock.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I knocked. Then, so the messenger's telling all his troops about all this. And Askeladd just beheads the guy suddenly. Just fucking... You know, Bjorn was like, so what do you want to do about this? And Askeladd answers him by, you know, cutting the guy's head off. Just shrink suddenly. And people look at him like, what the fuck, dude? What the... That's his fucking head. What are you doing?
People ranked him, but this is a bit much, Askeladd.
I mean,
come on.
He's one of ours. Like, so, he has a plan... Right, his idea. Well, he doesn't really have a plan, but he's got this notion of the fact that, look, we've been here for 10 whole years. The war is over. People are saying the last judgment's coming, so the time for war, our favorite thing, may be ending. The world may be ending. Fuck. We need to go out in a blaze of glory. None of this fading away. None of this waiting around for the apocalypse to take us.
We gotta do a Kurgan from high.
I'm gonna cut this guy's head off, and then we are gonna go without any help from the main army. Our 100 people are gonna go up against those 500 people, including Thorkel, and we're gonna rescue Canute. And
good luck with that. But then again, I think Askeladd might be working on Suikoden rules, where it's not necessarily about them. the people that you've got, but more like the quality.
Exactly. So we have in our 100, all of ours are part of the 108 stars. You other people only have 1 star, Thorkel, and the rest are just random cannon fodder. But that's it. I mean, that's what I've got as far as the episode summary. What a time.
What a time indeed.
As I talk about it, I after I got finished watching the episode, I didn't feel like much happened, but like as I talk about it, I'm like, there are a few things that happened, I guess.
There are indeed. All right. So, let us talk, I suppose, firstly about, well, let's actually talk about the Romans, believe it or not. Let's get them involved on this just for a little moment. And this ties into like basically the whole thesis statement of this entire episode, which is the idea of cycles of change and how things end, but they can still continue. Indeed, that's the entire idea of Ragnarok, at least as I read it in Neil Gaiman's book, which you've also read, which was that, okay, all the gods are dead. Shit got fucked up real bad. Everything went really to hell and backwards. But life goes on. Life continues. And you see that visually represented by the image of the Roman ruins in which Thorfinn and Askeladd have their little, like, you know, banter at, but overset over the fertile land which himself, Thorfinn, knows. So even though they had been there and have since gone, they, you know, the land still has opportunity before it, represented also through Vinland and the dream that Thorfinn has. But the thing is, though, the Romans still leave a legacy behind. They still have, you know, things there they've left, even though, you know, they obviously aren't around anymore. The ruins, for example, the reason London is named London is because it comes from Londinium, which is, of course, the original Roman name for the city when they ruled it.
And it's what they put into Wolverine's skeleton. Just saying.
I was actually thinking that's more Captain Britain, to be honest. And yes, that is actually a real Marvel captain.
Oh, my.
Yep. Londinium, by the way, is definitely, you know, Union Jack stripes. Oh, there is a character named Manchester Jack in DC as well.
Oh man, I will believe anything you say about DC. I mean, their
there is definitely not a Liverpool. There is not a Liverpool Steve.
There's not a guy called the Scouser.
No, probably not. Not to my knowledge.
I mean, they have, like, seriously, they never like purged their universe of the shitty ne'er-do-well superheroes, like, oh man, like Uncle Sam, the whole Crisis of Infinite Earth book.
They did purge him pretty hard in Battle for Bloodhaven, but that's a different topic.
Okay. And so, well, I'm not up to date.
He got killed to death. Oh my god. Anyway, why am I bringing up the Romans specifically in this whole idea of ruins and potential future and cycles and all? Because think about Thorfinn himself as a character, though. He is a ruined person, let's not lie here. And he's still got the legacy of his father very firmly imprinted on his mind, as we see through the dream here. But like the Roman ruins that are settled amongst this fertile land full of possibility, he is still a character with an open future before him that he just needs to seize upon. Yeah, his life has been basically defined by events that have gone before and left him a shattered, broken person. But that doesn't mean, as say, by the land that he knows, that he cannot, move beyond that and build upon that. So, visual allegory there, which I thought was quite neat. But that's only a part of the actual whole, cycle thing. This is very, dense with both with the Christian and Norse mythology at present in this episode, which I'm sure you'll elaborate on shortly.
Yeah, I that makes sense as, as a theme when I think about the episode as a whole. And there definitely, is that element of rebirth all throughout sort of the Christian religion and it on into the kind of end time stuff. But even the kind of main, the primary event of the Christian religion was Christ's death and then rebirth. And it's meant to kind of echo throughout all sorts of different things. And then, there's a lot of different ways that people sort of view the Christian apocalypse and end times. Like, a lot of people think that most of the language in John the Apostle's Revelations is sort of allegorical. Some people read it literally, on and on and on. But basically, everything, as you say, gets wiped away to start again. New heaven, new earth. Get rid of all the baddies. Get rid of the devil and all his bros, and go again. And I can't remember if we were talking about this off cast or not, but so in Gaiman's book, Norse mythology, so the ending, the post Ragnarok ending that he gives us, and Ragnarok in Norse mythology is, as you say, very much like the end of the gods and the world. These two wolves that have been chasing the sun and the moon finally catch up with them and eat them. Jormungand, the world serpent, comes out of the water onto land and spews venom everywhere. So you got poison, you got water, natural disasters.
Yeah.
40
Odin, years of darkness, rivers and bloods boiling, cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria.
Odin is like playing a guitar, and his is the name. It's like Einharar, it's something like that. His people and the Valkyries show up and have a big battle, and they die, and all the gods die. And in the oldest versions of the stories, that's it. Like, that's the end of history. And like, it all goes into the void, all creation, and it's just like, well, no more universe. But sort of the later ones, and I think people theorize like the versions of the story that started to proliferate after Christianity began to spread in those lands was, as you pointed out, like the rebirth. They get to start again with some new gods. The new gods make two new people, and they kind of get to go again and have a fresh start. The cycle, the rebirth, Thorfinn and Askeladd are mid-cycle. Askeladd believes it's twilight, and Thorfinn may believe differently. I don't know what he thinks about the world,
I think that because he's having more and more visions of Vinland, that he still remains open to that possibility. They come on much more strongly. But there is still those anchors to his past as well, because he sees his family there in this vision of Vinland.
Yeah, so like the whole thing about Vinland, like, or rather, the element of like apocalypse being introduced into the story, so forthrightly this episode gives me some new thoughts about Vinland. Like, if it, will Vinland be, is Vinland a place on the current Earth, or is it like, is it after we've all gone to heaven and it's the new one, it's the rebirthed world that we all get to go in after all the evil people die and the apocalypse has happened, right?
Quite possibly.
I'm really curious. That's sort of a new wrinkle on it, because what we've talked about before is maybe it's a real place and they need to go find it, or maybe it's kind of a place inside yourself.
But yeah,
to
transcend
to.
A literal place in terms of like what Leaf said in the first
well,
episode.
Of course, yes.
Right. But you are correct though in that even then, it's not a place that Thorfinn has ever visited as of yet, at least as far as the series is concerned thus far. But he still can't stop thinking about it. He can't stop thinking about that freedom, that warmer shore, that warmer climate that beckons out to him.
That's what I mean. Like, its function in the story, I guess. Like, absolutely, yes. Canada is real. Canada is a real place.
Is it really though?
But truly, it is. And,
Canada, are you real?
I don't know the words to the song. Do you know the song?
Nor do I. But okay. That's about it.
But so let's see. Like there's a kind of a third option now, at least in my mind, of how Vinland, like what the function of it could be. But I wanted to ask you a question.
Hit me.
let's see. Do you think that all this talk, all this language of the end of the world, the twilight of existence, it would sort of strike me as odd if it was only something that was happening in this episode. Do you think that they are going to or no, what am I? Do you think that they have like adequately foreshadowed it? Because it really comes at you out of nowhere in some respect, at least to me.
Do.
Okay. Yeah, tell me.
I do, and I will tell you why, because there's many, many different things that come into this. This is the whole, like, you know, layered, like, elements of Ragnarok, the Christian elements of Jesus on the cross, and also even tying back to Thorfinn's own visions as well, like his dream. So, okay, Thorfinn's dream's all about the future, fertile land, warm climates, potential, like, you know, for growing, but still anchored down by his past. Indeed, it's when he realizes past that, like, you know, the village in the dream is burned and his father dies again. He's still tied down to that, despite his father pleading for him to give up his revenge. Askeladd, he's all about, like, you know, end of the world, but it's also the end of his time as who he is. Because he recognized in this episode that once the war is over, his ability to plunder will be done. Like, he won't be able to go around doing what he wants freely.
Yep.
I mean, can you imagine as, like, you know, the Danish government, like, you know, saying, all right, you've been helpful, but what are you going to do now? You're going to start plundering our own villages, turning your own fellow man? You've done that. You're a liability. We've got to get rid of you. Like, the time of piracy like that is coming to an end. He recognizes that. So we got your contrast there. But then let's talk about Canute, or Canute, or Canate, or kind of tea, I suppose. I don't know how you pronounce this shit. Why all the Christian symbolism of Canute? Well, it's Jesus on the cross, and Jesus died on the cross, as I understand. I mean, I'm not the Christian of this particular podcast, and I generally, you know, treat the Bible like, you know, something to use to swat flies out of the air, not something to actually read, so take this pinch of salt. But my understanding of Jesus on the cross was he died to absolve the world of its sins, to essentially redeem them, to bring them back from the brink.
Depends on who you ask. But yeah, no, that's generally correct. Yes.
Yeah. So, Canute is often seen with the cross in question. So I am curious if, having drawn Thorkel out from the bridge to invade and putting himself in a more vulnerable position, that Canute is indeed forming the role, or serving the role of Jesus, quote unquote, in this particular scenario, suffering on the cross in order that he might then lead others to, you know, greater success and glory through his own sacrifice, opening up possibility of, you know, Thorkel being killed or driven off. I wonder. And bear in mind, after all, like, you know, it's a new start after Jesus dies on the cross, but then he returns as well. So here's my guess. Here's my guess as to what's going to happen as a result of all of this. I think Askeladd's number is coming imminently. He is going to be gone within the next episode or two.
I thought it was going to be this episode, quite honestly.
Yeah, I think he knows it, and I think that he's going to be happy to at least have his moment. Granted, his reasoning for going after to save the prince is because then that will give him some kind of, you know, curry favor with the royal family. Like, hey, we are pirates, we're scum, we're, you know, kind of bad and all that. But look what we did. Did we do a nice thing? We brought his son back, and he's in good shape. We even got the helmet off him finally. We got all the super glue off.
Do you think he means to survive? Do you think he means to survive the battle?
Ooh, I'm gonna say
it crossed my mind that he might just be looking for a place to die, a battlefield.
I don't think so, because otherwise I think he would probably then just let Thorfinn duel him now again, because he's still okay with the honor thing.
That's fair. No, you're right about that.
But I think that he's gonna at least do his damnedest to, you know, get rich or die trying, as they say, as 50 Cent once prophesized.
I just can't see him like. Yeah, I guess, yeah, whenever he feels like it was well and truly over, he'll duel Thorfinn for the last time. He will not live to see the age of peace. You know, once it's here, he's going to be like, well, see ya. I'm done.
Exactly. But that's the thing, though. Once Askeladd is then gone, this is where the rebirth element comes in of Ragnarok. specifically in relation to Thorfinn, because now what is his role in life? He still has that calling, that thing that speaks out to him that we've seen ever since the first episode, his wanderlust for exploration and learning about the world. So he might indeed then go out to seek Vinland, and that's when he becomes free, because he still carries that legacy, like the legacy of the Roman ruins and the names and all that have been left behind. He won't, the scars of, like, his time under Askeladd's company won't just go away like that, but he can move on to new things, to brighter things.
Well, I can't see him being allowed to be free. I think he's going to have to struggle for that freedom if he wants it.
When I keep thinking of this show and what you say there, there's one thing that keeps coming back to my mind, and that is the closing, the second to the last story mission. I'm making a video game reference here, but it's a good one. First Red Dead Redemption. I cannot remember the name of it, but brief recap here. John Marston, cowboy extraordinaire.
Yep.
He goes back to live on his farm with his family after having recovered them from what was then the FBI under some Edgar Ross, I think his name was. And the missions before that are very peaceful, like you're just killing crows on the top of a barn, hustling up your castle, all the kind of boring shit that farmers do. Indeed, this is kind of audacious in my opinion for the game to do that. Really, it should be building up to a big climax. But then Ross decides to be a complete dick and come and invade the farm with the entire US Army division, like for fucking New Mexico, and kill the whole family. But the thing is, right, John sends his son and his wife away to safety, and while in a barn at the farm, he walks out of the barn to the waiting US soldiers and is killed by them. But his death then lets them go free because they've got who they're after. So I think that similarly, once Thorfinn does finally make it to the point in which he does settle down in Vinland, England, or some other place, that he can be comfortable in, well, Floki and Canute and whoever else are still coming after him. Yeah, they're going to be still coming back for him. That's, again, tying to what I said on previous discussions of this very show. Can he get out of the cycle?
Right.
I mean, after all, Ragnarok happens once, the world begins anew, but does that mean, it won't happen again? Can you truly break free of war's influence? How many shots have we had in this show?
That's what I mean, yeah.
Of all the, even the closing moment of this particular episode, all of Askeladd's men preparing for war, but it's set against the backdrop of a new dawn and all the beauty of the wilderness and the countryside and the land around them and all the potential that has. It's juxtaposed.
Mm-hmm.
Is there ever going to be a way for Thorfinn to break out and just live a peaceful life? I mean, after all, that's what Thor's wanted, remember? And it didn't actually, happen for him, that's for sure. We did, Andy. I spied that. Who that is? Pass. We will undoubtedly find out soon enough.
Yeah. That's right. There was so little to go on there, I had forgotten about it, but no, I remember it now.
So yeah, I think that all this mythological stuff right here, right now, rather than it was in the previous episode where it was denounced or denied because, that lady who took in Thorfinn, she, prayed to Jesus for him and all that, and that obviously did not really help in the end. Yikes.
No.
Now it seems to be becoming more as like characters using it not necessarily, for wanting the best for everything, but just more prophesizing their own ends, like using the mythology to guide themselves. So it's still, they're all big on religion and all. So yeah, I think that Askeladd is going to bite it within the next 2 episodes. That's going to set Thorfinn free for a time. And then what's going to happen?
Yes, I think that it would be a shame if Thorfinn's freedom was given to him by someone. Rather, I feel like he ought to be the one to earn it. Like, I see him getting swept from Askeladd's group into some other kind of bondage or service or something else like that. I don't see him being able to walk away. Now, I mean, I do want to see, I think it will be really interesting to have him be able to separate from all of it and kind of sort of reenact the arc that his father did, pull away from the war and set up a life, and then, like it's coming for you, the long arm of destruction and war and everything is going to find you. That could happen. But I think if he were to just if it was just like, oh, Askeladd dies and then Thorfinn is free, like that would lack a little bit of, I feel like they'd be missing an opportunity if he didn't win his freedom.
I think that could work though, because if Askeladd is just fucking killed somehow, then Thorfinn won't have ultimately got his revenge, and he'll have to deal with them. I mean, I brought up in one of our previous podcasts about, like, the other shows that we've considered that have similar sort of arcs for their lead characters, 91 Days and Banana Fish. Angelo and Ash both got their vengeance in the end. But what if someone doesn't? What if they don't ultimately get that, and that is taken away from them?
Sure.
Does the desire of their vengeance then pass to the person who did that?
Yeah, it would be good. I would like to explore that also. But I just don't see him being able to walk away from the army or the merc group or whatever. But we'll see how that pans out. We'll see how that pans out in future. But another thing about the Romans that I thought was interesting. So they were standing on some, ancient Roman architecture, the foundation of it. Now Rome was, it was a very kind of, it was pretty advanced, they say in this episode, compared to the sort of Saxon civilization. And the Viking one, I guess, in some ways, they say. There was an extended period of peace during the Roman Empire. There was awful shit going down, to be sure, in a lot of places, but there was also like all kinds of, good human works and advancements for sort of cultural advancements and things, scientific ones. But all that stuff had to be, it required a platform, right? It required a peace and a security that was built on this foundation of war and conquest. And it made me, I may have talked about this before on the show, but it made me think about Vinland, and Vinland being a kind of untouched, pure land, right? And presumably when people go there, they're going to live peaceful lives and in serenity, and be able to love and nurture their families and not have to want for anything, because it's such a glorious place. But on what kind of murder, war, violence, crime is that security going to be built? I mean, can you have a place like Vinland? This is what makes Vinland, the sort of idea of Vinland, seem so unlike any sort of place in the world, or otherworldly, right? Or mythical, because it's this incredible, amazing place, but like you just have this total absence of. I see you've made a poll.
I have indeed.
At Warui Deshou to vote in the poll. So what am I trying to say? Well, the Roman civilization was built on conquest, and that beget another conquest, the Saxon one. And upon that foundation, that was itself built on conquest, that beget another conquest, the Vikings, and so on and so forth.
And as I've said before, there's plenty of history that follows this that just continues that.
Yeah. So, like, what... is it possible to have a place like Vinland that that's not built on any kind of violence? Like I think it's a I may be misattributing this, but I think it's an idea of Plato's that like the city is always founded on blood or on violence and crime, right? Because like it doesn't just appear there. You have to do violence to the land. You have to. I mean, my whole country that I live in was occupied before people got there, and by violence took the land to build the civilization that's here now. That is pretty peaceful and everything, but you have that original sin. That's the original sin of the city, right? Like the result may be quite nice and everything, but at the very base blocks of it, there was violence. And will there be for Vinland? And if so, like, what is that? Is it possible to have a place like Vinland without that original sin?
Well, that goes back to what I suggested previously, which I felt like that the show's overall thesis might be harmed because it is set at such a time and in such a definable location that we know what comes afterwards, and it doesn't get any better, really. But what you're saying there is more interesting because I think that maybe you're talking like Vinland is more a concept than a reality.
Mm-hmm.
And indeed, that's how Leaf has portrayed it. Like, he's been to Vinland. But the thing is, anecdotes and stories and perceptions are very mutable and very open to bias. So, maybe, again, it's more a concept than something to be aimed for rather than necessarily achieved. And just in the interest of making it clear that I'm no one special or, or that my country's history is, not on par. British Empire, woo! East India Company, woo!
Has the sun set on it yet? I have to know.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Okay. Oh, also for a point of clarification, so you said you were not the Christian on this podcast.
I should certainly hope not, because by God, I've got some explaining to do.
Yeah. So I don't think I am either. So are you talking about Vorgalian? No, you're not. No.
You've got more experience with the religion than I have.
It is, yes, I was a practicing Catholic, so just as a point of clarity. Okay. Next talking point. Go, Shadon.
I will. All right, so let's move away from the mythological, like, wider-ranging, cycle-based, philosophical stuff and mumbo-gumbo. Let's talk about Thorfinn for a second and the dream, and something I found really interesting that happened. So, throughout, basically from the point that Thorfinn first killed a man to present episode, he's been aiding and abetting Askeladd and all of his various awful, heinous shit. Solely so he can, keep his honor and have that duel with him. But I think this marks somewhat of a turning point, or a little bit of a turning point, because in the dream he notes that the village that is being attacked, which is explicitly not his village, but a dream one in Vinland, is still his, though. We are being attacked. That's where my mother and my sister are.
Ah, okay.
And I think the dream finally gives him some realization that, what he has been helping happen to so many villages and so many innocent people. Indeed, the people we see in the village at the start of the episode, and then the ones of the dream, of course, could have happened to his family. And then, of course, it ends with Thor's death.
Mm-hmm.
And this, I think, ties back into the idea that Vinland had about Thor's himself, which was that he had a code of honor. He had a morality and a system of ethics when it came to fighting, which was he would not kill unless absolutely necessary. And even then, he didn't do it in the end, when he really should have done.
Yeah.
And for me, I felt for a long while, I mean, this is speaking more to me personally here, so your mileage is obviously going to vary on this depending on your own morality. I'm genuinely of the opinion you should be good, but I think that there are times in which violence is necessary for a greater good. Does it make it clean? Does it make it easy? Does it make it, easy to stomach, for that matter? But I think it's fair to say that had Thorfinn just simply stabbed Askeladd in the fucking neck at any point over how many years that they've known each other, when he's asleep or whatever, when he's defenseless, how many lives would have been spared? how many people would have not suffered as a result of this? And that dream brings it back to that personal level for him, because he now realizes in some small way that what's been happening, to all the mums and sisters, and fathers, could have happened to us as well. So I'm wondering if this is the point in which he turns around on that. But I think Vinland, again, is like criticizing his agenda on this, because he should really have fucking killed him by now. Damn the honor. Damn that, what it means for him, doing it for, like, this honor system, this, something tied into its own mythology, of, like, citing ancestors and fathers and all that, and rituals. Like, Askeladd should have fucking died a long time ago, and because he hasn't, like, a lot of that blood, even the stuff that doesn't end up actually on Thorfinn, is still on his hands as a result.
While that is true, if he had killed Askeladd earlier, then I guess depending on what point you want to put the killing at, like, I think he would not have learned to survive, or learn to, he's still getting something out of it, despite the fact that, like, yes, because
that's one
he
life,
has
though, against many.
It's so just because he hasn't killed Askeladd, right? And the war machine probably would have continued to roll on, and people would have died and everything like that. But so I don't know that it's up to just him to stop that happening. I mean, I think it would have continued, but yeah, like, he himself has derived some benefit from it, and he will probably, if we take his entire life, Shadon, right at the end of it, and look at it, right, and don't, rather than picking out points in isolation, he'll probably use the skills that he learned fighting Askeladd and preparing to fight Askeladd to save a lot of people or to do something great. So at that point, will he be justified? Or what?
Well, I mean, my mind is pretty set on this. He should have done it. He should have fucking killed him by this point. Damn the code, damn and all that. Damn, that it would have happened to all of them anyway. If you have the ability to take action, to do a good, even if it necessarily is by causing a wrong like that, by murdering someone. And I'm not saying that you do that in general, of course, but I mean, in this very specific context, let's be fair. Like, Askeladd ain't going to be taken alive, and he's done some awful shit. He's raised villages to the ground. He's at least been complicit in allowing the rape of many women. There's all this. We've seen it. We've seen it firsthand.
But what if he saves just as many people, according to the skills, by all these incredible skills that he's learned by being protected by Askeladd's army? He's got this safety. He's able to learn to fight. He grows. He gets all this experience fighting, and he becomes a badass. And so years later, let's say, he does the same thing his father does. Like, he saves a lot of people's lives in the war. He saves people from being raped. Let's say he, like, kills a bunch of bad people. Basically, I guess I'm just saying that, like, I don't know.
One thing is more likely than the other, in my opinion. Like, it seems to be much more causally likely that killing Askeladd now, or having killed him earlier, would have saved a lot of people, whereas the potential for all this skill that he's built up through that point, saving lives later, seems much more hazy, in my opinion.
But let's say he does. No, of course. That's what I'm saying is, like, I feel like you could... It's really hard to, like, pass this kind of judgment, I guess, is what I'm saying. Like, and that it's much more sort of, I guess, fair to look at the entirety of a person's life, and rather than, like, zoom in on this one moment. Because, like, this one moment in isolation, like, should you X or should you Y? The right thing is X, the wrong thing is Y. Like, oh, you did the wrong thing. Like, but so often in life, like, making seemingly the wrong choice, or what is objectively, like, the wrong choice, like, things still come out of it that make your life better or help other people.
Like the
And
end of the world?
I don't know what you mean.
Well, the end of the world is a disaster, but good things can still come out of it, as evidence in the Ragnarok.
Oh, I see. Yes.
Ties back, taps
Right.
forehead.
Right. Right. Like
Shits again.
like I mean,
Put it this way.
like if he I don't know, like let's say next episode he does his awesome ninja shit, and only because he does this ninja shit he's able to save one family, a lady, a little girl, maybe an old man. I hate, with a capital H, any sort of moral kind of calculus that's like, well, you only saved this one family versus saving all these other people on one side. It's obviously right, the many versus the few. Like, to me, that's such a dehumanizing way to think about morality, and like it really degrades, especially the lives and like humanity of a person. Like that one family. Like I think, yeah, I really like that kind of like utilitarian thinking really bothers me. I guess that's why I'm pushing back on it, and also saying like, that we wait and see, and that like I think Thorfinn is in for a very kind of complex journey in which he will need a lot of different skills and a lot of different tools to survive, some of which he's going to pick up through some truly heinous means. He's totally imperfect. He's done a lot of awful shit. But I guess this brings me to a question I have for you. So I think the dream sequence kind of shows that, like, as you pointed out, that he's still kind of haunted by the ghost of his father's morality, right? And I think it still sort of says like that there's still a little boy inside of him. Do you think that this is primarily saying that like there's still some innocence in him? Do you think it is primarily is saying like there's something in him that's going to hold him back, that he's got to make peace with and get over? Or do you think it's a bit of both?
Well, I think that it is definitely still some innocence. I mean, I think for me, like I mentioned before, like the idea of, Thorfinn basically dying inside, like when his father died, and having never really grown up from there. That doesn't mean that he has forgotten, like, obviously the lessons and the thoughts his father had previously and the things he tried to impart on him, still very much part of him, and he keep coming back to him. He's just not actively thinking about them during his waking hours. They only seem to be when he's asleep. But, I mean, I've had plenty of dreams in my own time, like, they've been about emotionally tumultuous stuff that I've been dealing with. Not in such explicit or constructed or crafted detail, I will say. Dreams tend to be a lot
lovingly
more chaotic
animated.
than they're presented in a lot of fiction, that's for sure. But no, I think that is still there. I mean, I think that innocence is the innocence of Vinland, like the innocence of a potential out there, like, that's like unblemished by the harshness of reality. It's a kind of naivety, even, I would say, like, believing in Vinland as it is. I mean, this is why I push back on it myself, because I have the benefit of being an audience member with an education sufficient enough to know the history that follows, like, in actual Vinland / America after the time of the Vikings is pretty bad.
Yeah.
It's a bit shit.
It is a bit shit.
But that doesn't mean, that the naivety itself is wrong necessarily, or even that it should be called naivety, because that has a kind of negative connotation to it. So no, I think that innocence is very much there. And I think that, again, it's just a question of him not snuffing that out entirely. But this is also why I, as much as I say, kill Askeladd right the fuck now, that does come at great personal cost to Thorfinn if he does in that. It's catch-22.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Should someone trade their soul for the greater good? Should
Exactly, right.
should Thorfinn, believe it or not, to go back to the mythological elements and the religious elements episode, should he, take that pain and that suffering and that damnation upon himself, like Jesus did, in a certain sense, for the greater good of saving other people?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost a way of
Should he truly die? Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
right. It's almost a way of saying restating the sort of problem that I was talking about, the kind of political philosophy problem of the original sin of the city. Like, okay, is it worth it, like, that this one people kills off another people to build their shit somewhere, because if they create this civilization, they come up with the cure for cancer and save everybody and all this other bullshit, and this is just, again, it's another way of talking about the problem you're talking about. Like, should one, like a person destroy themselves if it'll mean saving a whole bunch of other people? It's quite a problem, and it's very revealing of people's moral tendencies, I think, for sure.
I mean, the thing to remember though is that when you and I consider both the legacies of our own countries, and that question of was it worth it or not, the problem is that we're so far removed from the original people who even created that, and so very different in our viewpoints. I don't think we can really answer that. I mean, well, when I say that, I think we can answer and say that none of the awful, heinous shit should have happened, absolutely. But we ultimately can do nothing about it. We can't go back in time and change that for the better as much as we might like to. So the question ultimately is merely a philosophical one, and not one that can be practically acted on, unless,
future applications, I think.
Oh, for sure. You learn from history. Yeah. Absolutely. You absolutely do. But it's not a question of going back and undoing it, because it can't be.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, and indeed that's what's happening in Vinland. Like, Thor's had his policy, had his perspective on, I don't kill people anymore, and it got him killed, and it destroyed his son. Oops. And I mean, that's pretty factual.
But that's like the but it's like the good.
As much as I like Thor's, he fucked up.
I know.
He should have taken Askeladd's head.
Yeah,
he should have
right.
Every single one of them.
He
might have hated himself for after the fact, which is the same as Thorfinn himself if he then ended up killing Askeladd in cold blood. But it would have been for the better. Not even just for the sake of all the people that Askeladd then wouldn't have ended up pillaging, plundering, and raping, but for his own son's welfare as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's a compelling argument, like, against, like, any kind of moral absolutism. Yeah, I like that.
I personally don't believe in moral absolute. I don't believe in always doing good. I think that sometimes you have to take a grey stance on things and consider complex and difficult situations on a moment by moment basis with the best of your knowledge that you have. Now, that doesn't mean you can't do stuff like, say, for example, I don't know, using people's proper pronouns. That's not fucking difficult. You can do that. There's no moral, like, grey area to that, in my opinion. Nor is there any moral grey area in doing things like, being nice to people in general, like, But when you're faced with a complex situation with, substantial and devastating outcomes, you need a complex thought process to it, as opposed to, nope, I ain't doing it. I ain't fucking doing it. I ain't killing him. You can't treat a complex scenario simply.
I guess it just depends. I mean, but what if that seemingly simple answer that might look simple to other people has been arrived at through great complex thought process and emotional toll.
Yeah. That's what I mean. That's why I say it can't be treated simple. I'm not talking as in the end result being simple. I'm talking about the process to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that is limited by time. I mean, Thor's didn't exactly have 3 days to go prepare his
exactly right.
He had to think there and then, and he cocks up. Don't get me wrong. But even then, Andy says in chat, the boat would have been filled with arrows, everyone else would be dead. Maybe not. We don't know. I'm still of the opinion that, ultimately, okay, fair enough. Ari and everyone else lived, so did Leif. Askeladd was true to his word on that, but his son, well, his son was also an unintended consequence. We didn't get to see the exact sequence of events that happened afterwards, in which Thorfinn got separated. It was probably unintentional.
I think Blinkaji brings up a good point of like actually further damning Thorfinn's kind of stubborn, heels dug in stance about the honorable duel. You know, like it seems very selfish. You know, I mean, not that, again, he's a boy, he's caught up in this. I don't know if it's realistic to expect him to like by himself try to change anything, but you know, the fact does remain that like he is hanging on to the whole honor thing to like prove a point, which is just seems a petty reason when you have like actions of these really grave consequences happening.
Yeah, I mean, also if he weren't so naive, I mean, the thing is, Thors did win the fight, but then events interceded to basically take that victory away from him. So who's to say, like, you know, that if Thorfinn is fighting Askeladd, you know, in a duel like he did in one of the previous episodes where he was circled around by all of his men, Askeladd doesn't give that tiny little secret pinky, like, hand signal, and Bjorn just, like, you know, fucking comes up and twists Thorfinn's head off like at the top of a fucking melon soda. You know?
Could have.
You know, it's not as simple as that. Like, he's got a simple approach to it, and even I suppose even a thing that I'm complaining about is, and this is not a complaint about the show, by the way. This is just about his behavior. That's a good thing, by the way. Like, is that he's taking a simple-minded and simply thought out like two-step process to, you know, getting things back to the way they should be, or as close as they should be, which is to restore a sense of honor, to you know, redeem his father that way. But in reality, even if he came up to that same conclusion, what he really should be doing is taking a lot more time to think about it. As you say, like, you know, as I said before, like, even if it's a simple outcome, it still requires a complex decision process to come to that. And up until this episode, I don't think he's considered for a second what it means for all the people that have been hurt or killed as a result of his actions.
Yeah. I think that's probably true. And I like a point you made earlier, by the way, when you were saying that the fact that, you know, this occurs to him when he dreams, sort of indicative that he's not thinking about it a lot. And it makes me feel sorry for him in a way, because you know that he probably would think about it more if he could, but so I just finished reading the first Game of Thrones book, the first Song of Ice and Fire book called Game of Thrones, and toward the end, a lot of really bad shit starts happening to Daenerys, and she has a kind of mantra she repeats to herself over and over. If I look back, I'm lost. If I look back, I'm lost. Like, I can't, if I dwell on anything, if I falter, if I don't concentrate on moving forward and surviving, I'll get caught up in my own grief, distress, other people's desire. It'll be done. I just have to move. And I think this is Thorfinn. He can't look back. If he does, he may seem weak. He may not be decisive in these battles where his life is on the line. Like, he's not able to think about his family and think about things like, you know, that the ideals that his father would have and have him practice. Like, he has to shove it down, and it's kind of in his subconscious, and it comes to him in dreams. That's a really interesting aspect of all this to me. And maybe, like you were saying, like, maybe there's kind of some kind of new step, or it's more personal to him now, like you said, because of the nature of this dream, where
it could have happened to my family too.
Yeah.
And you know what? like even in modern times, how true is that? Where people will say take a deep, long piss over the idea of, for example, the welfare state because other people are using it, but then they immediately, the moment they find themselves in deep shit, will need that same thing. It's not a problem unless it affects me personally. And this is the point which Thorfinn crosses the threshold to realizing that it already does, and it affects everyone else personally as well.
Well, yeah. That framing of it makes him sound a little bit selfish, though. I feel like he's of necessity for survival.
Well, he is, because he got the fucking, like, do you remember the lady who, like, took him in?
Mm-hmm.
And, like, cleaned him up and everything like that, and then he just basically used her, like, you know, hospitality against her, and then burned her entire village to the ground by signaling for Askeladd's forces to come in. He's selfish.
But he was, like, 12. I don't fault him too deeply.
You're right, but it doesn't mean that I'm wrong on what he is either. Like, he has one goal.
Right, but I guess it's not a
He's killed people to get that in the pursuit of that goal. He's decapitated people.
Right. I think it's that way of being has been forced upon him by other people, and to survive, he's had to embrace all this awful shit.
He doesn't know anything else at this point.
Yeah, I mean, the word selfish, like, at least to me, and I'm not saying factually it's incorrect, but it has these connotations of just that he'd be, like, really blameworthy, and, like, I don't know, that it's not like he's making all these free choices. You know what I mean? Like, he really has been just enslaved to all this awful shit, and he's
Good
such
choice
a
of
and
words,
he's a,
given what we found out previously.
I know, and he's just a kid, so it's hard, it's tough, yeah. Do you have other points of talk?
I do actually. I have one more that I'm going to bring up, and then we'll cover our Patreon questions. I'm only going to cover this briefly because this has actually been covered by someone I follow on Twitter, Lost Thief, who is a prolific, like, Macross fan art reposter and genuinely cool person. And they point out a change from the manga to the anime, and I'm sure Blinkaji, who has previously chimed in with points about this, can inform me more on this as I go along. Anyway, what Lost Thief pointed out was that you recall the scene, of course, in which Thorfinn wakes up in the stable, and you know, after the dream.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, what wakes him up in the manga is that there are two men dragging a woman in there to rape. That, of course, was cut from the anime.
Mm-hmm.
So Lost Thief made the point that this was a good thing because ultimately we already know at this point what Askeladd's modus operandi is, and indeed I still feel bad for kind of glossing over on that previously, but it is true. That's what he does. Even if he doesn't do it himself, he enables it en masse. And this is, again, I think one of those things where simply putting sexual violence in there for its own sake is never a good thing.
Right.
You don't throw this shit in light, and especially if the point has already been made. So I'm in agreement with Lost Thief's perspective that it was good that was cut, because it didn't need to be in there to serve the purpose, like that. To get the point across that's already been made. It was redundant, essentially. So I just thought I'd mention that just again to show that there are changes being made to the anime beyond simply resequencing orders of events. There are like content-related stuff and omissions, and indeed that's a part of what adaptation should be, in my opinion. As I said before, you add, you subtract, or you polish. And it's on you, as the person making the adaptation, to utilize all three elements of that to create the best version of the work that's possible in the medium you're bringing it to. And if that means, as I say, cutting stuff out, do it. Like, do it with a good reason, for sure, and as it is here, but don't be afraid to. Don't think to yourself that you have to create a pure version of a work. Because by howdy, there are some fantastic films and such out there that are based on utter trite. Like, for example, the Godfather, I think, if I recall correctly, the book from that is shocking. The film itself, you give it to, it's Francis Ford Coppola making it, it's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Starship Troopers, like, that again changes from the original source material. All sorts of stuff that otherwise I could mention if I had more time to think about it, but you get my point.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good thing that that's the case there. So I just wanted to, I don't know, if, of course, if Philosophy follows us. I don't think so. But if they ever catch this particular discussion rabbit, I'd just like to thank them for pointing that out, because I otherwise wouldn't have known about that. And it is an entirely valid point in my opinion.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah, don't do a Goblin Slayer. Don't throw that shit in for no reason.
No.
Fuck that show, by the way.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there.
Thank you.
Anyway.
Thank you, at Lost Thief, for inspiring this point of discussion. So I have one more point.
Hit me.
So you mentioned the lady that took in Thorfinn and how kind of her beliefs and religion failed her, and she was a Christian. And you have Canute, who also seems to be like maybe Catholic, or certainly like the more liturgical and it's sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Sacramental, ornate stuff on the wall. Like, yes, he appears to be Catholic or of a liturgical kind of branch of Christianity. And at the end, the last scene we see him in, right? The crucifix falls down from the wall when he's taken. It falls on the floor. More kind of, I feel like, pretty simple symbolism that, like, okay, your faith is not going to save you on its own. Like the way people are, the way war is going to knock it down. It's gonna burn it. But this same episode, right? You have this kind of weird conflation of the Last Judgment and Ragnarok being talked about by Askeladd and Thorfinn, and you have it kind of guiding Askeladd's life. And it makes me wonder, depending on how things go out, or play out, rather, you could, like, the images in this episode could be used to support a couple different theories. You could say, if things play out a certain way, that the show seems to be saying that specific religions themselves are not going to protect you from suffering and pain and loss, but maybe they're kind of like hinting at something. Maybe they are gesturing towards these larger truths of the world, like cycles and everything like that. Or
isn't it part of common Christian tenets that suffering is God's way of testing people? I know that's very broad and generic, but I know that at least that's got to be some part of it somewhere.
Again, it just depends on who you ask, honestly. there's a lot of talk about pain and why. The problem with pain, like gratuitous suffering in the world is the big stumbling block for that religion. Okay, so yeah, so you could have that, or is all this talk of Ragnarok also going to be shown to be hollow and lacking, and just another sort of myth that can't stand up to the reality of the world, just like the crucifix, just like the lady's prayers? It could go either way. I don't really know. I'm curious what you think the show will kind of support.
I think the mythology elements, like, and the religious elements, are there, as to say, foreshadowing specific stuff for the characters and the rebirth that's going to happen. Because Thorfinn will eventually break free of dealing with Askeladd one way or the other, and he'll learn to have to go on his own way, and that will be his rebirth.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's all perfectly fine and dandy. There's not going to be a problem. Insofar as, like, proving stuff false, so this is something I saw in a H-Bomber guy vid. I think it was his one about Cyboys, actually, where he said, where he noticed at the very end about this paper done on the Doomsday Cult, who even when the end of the world was predicted by them, it didn't happen. They just changed their belief and reaffirmed it.
Right.
So I think that potentially, even if this whole thing falls flat, one way or another, if they truly do buy into it in terms of like this is the end of the times, as opposed to I think Ascai is going for, where he's just using it as a parallel, then, well, if it doesn't happen, that doesn't mean they can't simply readjust it to suit the new narrative.
Yeah, no, they totally could, but the text of the show, I think we could, as observers and viewers of the show, would be saying like, okay, the show is saying that all these things are just narrative. They're not. They're not hinting towards it. They're not hinting towards any kind of truth.
We're not getting berserk shit here. No.
Oh no, not demons, or anything like that, or actual Ragnarok. But
that's the same difference. So like spiritual kind of thing. That's why I said that. Like, otherworldly elements. It's literally just serving as a narrative that fits the current mood that they fall in.
Well, no. So I think you might be misunderstanding what I'm saying. Is that the show may be, again, it depends on how the show plays out with regards to this whole thing about Twilight and cycles and everything like that. I mean, it could just be mood stuff that is totally winds up not standing up to reality. But I don't know. It didn't. Everything else that's been introduced, all the Christian elements have been immediately shown to be vacuous and like dismissed and broken, whereas this whole idea of a Ragnarok and Twilight and cycles is not. In fact, it is not shown to be wanting. It's shown to be something that gives purpose to people with power. And so, yeah, I mean, if they show that like that it actually is kind of true, not Ragnarok, but just that specifically, but the idea of apocalypse and cycles and everything like that. Again, I think they could maybe be saying something like, well, again, these specific religions are not in and of themselves like textually and factually accurate, but maybe they're like, again, they're gesturing towards something that is actually true about the flow of the world. I think that could that's in play as a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was before, like, about the idea of cycles and such. So, yeah, I would agree. I don't think they're factually accurate. We know they're not, because this is saying that, I mean, they say 20 years from now, it's the end of, worlds we know, and we all feel fine. But obviously.
No, that's obviously, that's not going to happen.
Yeah. So, no, I see where you're coming from. But, yeah, like, I've already said, like, I think that it's just going to serve as a narrative to foreshadow what happens to the characters. And it's going to serve as, like, the really tumultuous moment in which Thorfinn is set free, and it's going to be incredibly fucking painful for him. But, well, he'll come through it.
All right, let's get to the patrons.
All right, so we've got 2 Patreon questions here. Now, I'm going to start with the second one first, because the answer to this one is dead easy. This comes from Mirror on the Wall. Are you as disappointed as I am that we have to wait another week before we are finally properly introduced to Knut? The answer is yes. Because my initial reaction to this episode was, by God, we really are spinning our wheels in the mud. Now, Timey, and Thought brought up all the stuff we've discussed now. But I will also not lie and say that event-wise, what actually happened was not too dissimilar from previous episodes. I feel like in some way that you could condense the events of these 2 episodes into one. It'd be tight. It'd be very tight to do it, but you could. So I want to see the pace of the show pick up again now, which I'm sure it will. You don't have an episode called Ragnarok where everyone discusses the end of everything and then says, oh yeah, we're going to go on a suicide mission where we're outnumbered 5-1 and our enemy is basically, well, he's fucking 4K, like, at this point. you're going to end up getting in Forkel in a cell. It's going to be awful. You're going to die, man.
Forkel in a cell.
Yeah. So to answer the Mirror's question, yes.
Yeah.
We've got to start, but we need to then get going. We need something. We need some more. Like
I really want to know this character. It's so fascinating.
Do you have any thoughts on that, Doc, or are you in agreement?
No, that's what I was just saying. That I really, really want to know this character. It's super frustrating that we didn't get more of it. Like I need to know Canute. I want to know more.
And the next question, this is probably one of the best questions that I've ever been asked as part of this podcast.
It's good. Yes.
This comes from Blinkaji, who's in the chat, and I'm sure that they will similarly join in with their own answers to this one. Feel free to put your own answers in the chat as well to this one, folks. This is an open season one because it's just incredible. Which children's cartoon character would you least like to hear Forkel's voice coming out of? I thought about this.
Me too.
Long and hard. I feel like I could write a PhD paper on it. I could write an entire doctorate on this.
Yeah.
But I've come to my conclusion.
Okay.
I would least like to hear Forkel's voice coming out of Barney the dinosaur.
That's not a cartoon character, though.
He's a fucking purple dinosaur!
He's
He's
a mascot. He's a person in a... He's in a suit. He's not drawn on paper, though.
He's been animated a couple of times.
Oh, I guess so.
I will punch the Atlantic Ocean. And I'll punch you as well for saying no to. He's some fucking cartoon character.
Oh,
God.
That's a bad one. That's a really bad one, man.
As in painful to think about.
Yeah.
Can you just imagine like Forkel yelling while voice yelling while Barney's running around with his stumpy little arms.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy.
So I've narrowed it down. I've narrowed it down to two people.
Go on. I'll let you have two.
Well, neither of them are people. So my two are Scrappy Doo. Which...
No, you win. You win. Like, I thought Barney was good, but actually giving Forkel's voice to that complete fucking load of a character. Oh my god.
It's that it made me laugh. And Smurfette from the Smurfs. Of course. Would be nightmarish, I think.
Oh, Gargamel. How about Gargamel? Holy shit.
It'd be more fitting, but yeah, I guess it would be pretty fucking creepy if you were a kid and you heard that voice. Oh, that was a great question, Blinkaji.
Thank you for that. I'm not going to be able to get over that now. Fucking Scrappy Doo's voice by far. My head's blown. Right. Anyway, before we wrap up, I will just go to the polls. So just check how we're getting on here. We've got 3 this week. So the first poll, of which we only had 3 votes thus far, so get your votes in on this, folks. Have a nosy at. In your opinion, what is the closest approximation of Forkel's expression at learning of Prince Canute being present? 0% say constipation, 0% say Olive Garden breadsticks, 33% say quad damage, and 67% say dick dastardly. And I think that's probably quite accurate there. He's just missing the long mustache. Next question. Does Vinland Saga suggest that personal or societal cycles can be broken, or is the grinding wheel of decline and ascendancy inescapable? 60% say yes, and 40% say no. That was me whipping out my dictionary for that and just slapping on the keyboard.
I enjoyed it.
Next question. Should Thorfinn have killed Askeladd by now, codes of honor and rights of combat be damned? We have a 50-50 split on this at the moment with 6 votes, so 3 each. Yes and no respectively. So everyone at home who's taking part thus far in the polls, thank you very much. Feel free to, if you've not already done so, pop your own answers in. Very eager to hear them. You're also more than welcome to tweet at us, by the way, on which, to follow up on Blinkardi's question, which cartoon character you'd least like to hear Vorkel's voice come from, or even which you'd love to hear it come from.
Yeah.
I mean, can you just? I'll throw another one out here. What about He-Man?
That would be incredible. Oh my god, that would be so. That would be so good. That would be so good. I would like that. How about Cobra Commander?
See now, Batros, we've got to kill Vorkel. I'm Skeletor. Meh. We've got to take London Bridge.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the same if Skeletor like had a deep, throaty voice.
Oh god,
he's got to be so nasally.
He absolutely must. Yeah.
Oh, Plankton. Oh, okay. We didn't rate the episode, but
we should.
I'm gonna say, I'm gonna give this one. I liked a lot about it. I thought certainly a better than average episode of anime, but for this show, it was a little light on new stuff happening. I did feel that you maybe could truncate some of this, figure out kind of a better way to intersplice it with other episodes, to get the same information across to us. Just wanted more to happen, despite liking a lot of the conversations that happen in this episode and a lot of the development. So I'm going to go 3.75 fallen crucifixes out of 5.
Fair enough. I'm actually going to probably race it similarly to you. There is one other thing I neglected to mention, which is I think the Wit Studio is also laying the side down a little with animating characters in groups again. Because there were a lot of times when characters were like all cuddled together and they were just completely frozen in the pose, like you'd have someone speaking in front of me here, and I would just be going,
yes,
and not moving at all. Even though they would be making noises like they were cheering, and I mean, well, I guess they've all got great careers as ventriloquists after all the piracy's over. If they're able to do that, that's something. So yeah, laid down the side a little, but that's like as far as visual fidelity issues go, I've seen far worse, and that's been rare. So I only bring that up just because I noticed it here a fair bit. Say the pace needs to pick up now, and I'm sure it will. I feel fairly confident in that. But I'm not going to lie as well and say that the last episode and this one and a little bit before that have not been a little bit of a lull. Like when you have such a strong start, maintaining the pace of that is difficult, but I'm not also going to cut slack for not doing that. So I also will say that I did actually find it a little jarring how Thorfinn's like, don't be too chummy with me, Askeladd. And then they kind of are chummy-ish, like they still talk. He should have really just walked away. But that's mine. I'm not going to labor on that. So I'm actually going to give this the exact same rating as you, Doc, for once. You and I have parity this time around. Would you fucking believe it? I mean,
first time it's ever happened.
Yeah. Well, it's like Ragnarok. It happens once in a lifetime.
That's right, yeah.
It is. So in the end, I will give this 3.75 Bjorn not eating mushrooms for once out of 5.
Oh, poor Bjorn.
Even he's having an off day when he's not doing that.
Just must be suffering so deeply.
Can you imagine the low negative tone version of the Super Mario mushroom pout noise, like wah, wah, wah.
Yes, totally. Well, folks, this has been episode 10 of Vinland Saga for our Stream of Thought series. Thanks for tuning in. We read some patron questions on the show, and if you'd like to submit patron questions,
hell yeah,
go on over to patreon.com/Warui Deshou, and if you sign up for the Scythe Master tier, the $3 tier or higher, you'll be able to
the best thing that Phantom ever created.
I know. Yes, exactly. You'll be able to then ask us some questions in our Discord channel, which we will then have to answer on these streams. And of course, you can always be part of chat on Twitch and in future on YouTube to ask questions. And if you are unable to financially support us on Patreon, that is A-okay. We still appreciate your viewership, your listenership. Give us a follow on Twitter. Give us a review on Apple Podcasts. That's like probably where like not too many people actually listen to us through that, but like it helps the algorithm in the iTunes, or sorry, not iTunes anymore, in the Apple Pod store. We got a pretty vibrant SoundCloud as well, podcast there. And of course, the VODs to this and everything we do podcast-wise will be going up on YouTube. Later this week, we're going to be finishing off Given. It's the final Given, the taking. First thing the show was Given, and it's about to be taken away.
Given's 11.
Give 11. Given's 11. God damn it. Yeah. So if you are a Tier Bando patron, look forward to that coming out this week.
Hell yeah.
As well as other ventures. Yeah, no, sure. And other things we got down the pike. We've talked about some of them before. Some of them we can't talk about yet, but
I'm currently going to be covering Tokyo Godfathers, which I saw for the first time only on Sunday, and holy shit.
Yeah, holy shit is right.
People said Satoshi Kon was good, and I'm here just like, no, boy, load a little smoke up his ass. Bullshit. I don't believe any of it. It ain't real. And I just watched it, I'm just like,
yes. I'm sure you didn't actually think that. I'm sure.
No, I just took a long drink of straight vodka because I thought so. God, I'm yeah, it was cracky. It was a cracky piece of work that, and I will be covering that in exhaustive detail coming soon.
Yeah, and like I said, some of it we can't talk about yet, but follow us on Twitter.
I don't want to talk about it, but that's different.
Well, though some of it you do want to talk about, but we want to keep it under wraps until closer to time.
That's what you think.
So, thanks everybody for hanging out. We really love and appreciate all of you, and until next time, embrace each other, everyone, to the ends of the universe.
Rock and roll!